2016 Board of Directors, PPAC. No, why do I have?
Not wrong with anything.
What's that?
That's funny because I have the right agenda, but it said.
The words aren't.
Lower level conference room. That was location. Location. We are. This is the board for the PPRTA.
Thank you.
So if that's what you're here for, you're in the right place. We do have a quorum. Item 2 would be approval of the agenda, and we have no reason to have an executive session, so I would entertain the motion to approve the agenda without items 10 and 11.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Anyone in the audience would like to bring a matter before this board that is not on today's agenda? Well, just because I don't know where else to put it on the agenda, let's talk about the June meeting. The commissioners will be out of town, and we are. I am fine. I want to speak for all the commissioners. I'm fine with this board having its regular meeting if there's a quorum, but your margin for error goes down pretty significantly. Will everyone else be able to be at the
I'll be here.
June 8th, is it 8th? June 8th meeting? Merv's good,
We're going to be June 8th.
okay? And perhaps Raymond will be represented. It looks like if Dennis can't make it, you're here, Turner?
One of us will the regular meeting.
Okay.
Wait a minute, they're going to put a bunch of stuff on the agenda to approve.
It is kind of scary giving them a whole month to,
right.
yeah.
Move all county money to Green Mountain Falls.
Do we have a unanimous decision on that?
Green Mountain Falls, Raymond, Colorado Springs. We can find out. Work out.
But the chair still sets the agenda, right? We're good.
We'll put a small split in there for Raymond. There we go.
So we'll go ahead with the regular meeting day, it looks like, Rob.
Thank you.
Takes us to approval of the minutes from the April meeting. Any changes? Do we have a motion to approve?
So made.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Citizens Advisory Committee Monthly Report. Jim Godfrey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jim Godfrey.
Jim Godfrey, Chair of the CAC. The board approved 5 contracts for the city, and we split that into 2 votes. One, the first 4 on either material or service-related contracts for the city. We split apart the purchase of a paint truck. It was the item was trying to get our feel for how the CAC felt about before they put city employee and time into doing their research. You remember back several years ago, we had the whole issue of RTA owning trucks, and we kind of did away with the pickup truck thing, general purpose things, but we left in there the ability for special purpose vehicles. And so Corey brought forward this that's describing, and so it was really a discussion of talking points, so there's no recommendation there at this point other than the CAC felt, based on the information we had, that we would favorably receive and review a request to purchase a paint truck. So there was no real decision there, but so there were 4 contracts for the city that we're making recommendation to approve. The county came forward with some purchase orders for aggregate and material for their paving and whatnot, and we make a positive recommendation for approval on those. The city came through with 1 line item transfer on some money, and we are recommending approval of that as well. And then the last one was a policy change for policy number 12 on the Woodman Road corridor. In the past and as currently shown, the policy lists all of the variations that have been approved by the board over the years for large dollar value contracts and projects. And they modify in one form or another the ceiling amount on a change order. And so due to the large amount of construction work and the large contract for Woodman, the city brought forward a request to increase that change order amount to 15% versus the 10%. And so we reviewed all that, and we make a positive recommendation for their request. And also in that policy that you'll discuss later, we recommended that for projects where the work has been completed, to move them to a separate section of the policy because they no longer are applicable, and just have them in a historical report. Keep them all in the policy letter for historical purposes, but not in the active because those projects are completed. So you'll review that as you come forward here. So that's just about it from the CAC.
Questions? Trustee Turner?
I know sometimes pink trucks can be pretty pricey. What's the price on the one they're looking at?
They haven't. I don't, did you have? Corey's going to talk to that when they come forward. But it was not a lot of specifics at our meeting. It was why and the wherefore. And we've been kind of asking the member governments when they come forward with vehicle or large maintenance contracts to look at lease purchase, to look at that point of the economic point of where you keep maintaining something or do you replace it, to look at that value point. And so Corey has did a real good job with bringing the details and answering the questions, and so that's where we did on that one.
And the 15% increase on the Woodman?
That's coming up for us later, too.
It's coming up as well. All of those will be discussed. We were just reviewing what we looked at. So. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Beverly, financial reports.
Good afternoon. The March sales and use tax was $7.3 million versus the budget of $6.8 million, so we had an over budget amount of almost $500,000 or 7%, and then we're ahead year to date almost $1.5 million or 8%. So another good month. And then on page 2, we're ahead of almost $1.3 million compared to actual for last year. We're adding $3 million to the amended budget that'll come forward both in June and July to the CAC and the board. So for 2016 estimated revenue. So are there any questions on the financial reports? Okay, thank you.
When you do that, it makes it easy.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Welcome, Mr. Godfrey.
I'd just like this, Jim Godfrey of the CAC. I'd like to make a correction. The city's request was to lower, it's a 5% of the Woodman project, not going up. Because of the larger value, they lowered it. And so I didn't want to be, I wanted to be statistically correct. I couldn't find my piece of paper with my notes, so.
Okay. 7A, City of Colorado Springs request for capital projects line item transfer. Welcome, Kathleen.
Thank you. Kathleen Krager, City Traffic Engineer. I'm here today on behalf of Mike Chavez, who's gone for the week. So just think of me as Mike, and this will all go smoothly. This is a transfer of $1.5 million. It's for the Woodman Phase 2 widening project, which is the widening project around Union, as well as the CFI interchange. It is a combination of three major sources of money: PPRTA 1, PPRTA 2, and federal grants. So we're talking about PPRTA 2 money today. We did get 3 bids in for the construction of this project, and our lowest bid that we accepted was $31,349,000. That bid was about 14% over the engineer's original estimate for this project. Sort of not surprising, considering the estimate was done on a conceptual design and that our construction costs have been mounting steeply for the last couple of years. We knew that this was going to be a more expensive project than what we had first expected, so we added $5 million in the federal grant to help with this, as well as transferring $1 million or no, I'm sorry, we added $1 million in federal and transferred $5 million from PPRTA one money into this project. We still find ourselves short 1.5, so we would like to transfer it from the Pikes Peak reconstruction project to Woodman. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't think there aren't a few potholes in Pikes Peak Avenue that need to be rebuilt. We're fully aware of that. It's just a large project that is still a ways off. We have concrete work to do on Pikes Peak, so we're not ready for pavement reconstruction yet. Once we get extra revenue in come June and July and look at some other projects, we'll do some more rearranging to make sure that we have enough money to get Pikes Peak so that it can be driven on once again.
So question, where did the 5.1 come from? What pot did you, I see that it was RTA 1, but.
That was $5.1 million in excess money that we did not need on City of Colorado Springs projects in PPRTA 1. And rather than roll that into the spare pot that we have for PPRTA 1 that will be used eventually for North Mark Shuffle, we moved it into Woodman to see if we need it for Woodman before any excess gets rolled over to North Mark Shuffle. But South Mark Shuffle is fully funded, and we still have excess that we can use on North Mark Shuffle or to fund South Mark Shuffle if we need to.
So I thought in our grand scheme of getting a report what's left that began more than a year ago, we were down to only the money that was going into North Woodman in terms of spare change laying around that had not been spent on projects. Obviously, I was mistaken.
This was a board action from, thank you, and it was money left over from a number of projects, including Milton Proby and Vincent. And the board allowed Mike to put it into Woodman to help with Woodman funding for the time being.
Yes, Councilmember.
I'll second it for purposes of discussion.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Beverly, obviously, if we're considering this, this is allowable for these funds to be fungible and then be reimbursed, and it isn't something that would set a precedent in the future for anything that would be unusual, correct?
Is it okay if I speak from here?
No, not really. Why don't you come to the mic?
Or our attorney, either one.
Please, we look back.
I hope this answers the question, but with RTA 1, we used to increase the budget every year by an inflation factor. And it kind of made a mess of things because we were just overall increasing everything in the capital projects. So now for RTA 2, we have quite a bit of revenue that's higher than was estimated for the projects at the beginning to come up with the list with the whole amount spread among the projects. So now what we'll be bringing to you with the amended budget is like a new rainbow spreadsheet with the original estimate and then a new estimate for some of the projects that they know will be different instead of just adding like 15% blanket every year. I think it might be an easier way to look at this and to allocate funds to it. But right now, the city's kind of caught because they want to go out with this contract, and the amended budget process starts this next month, where we would have additional revenue. So it's just a little bit late. But you'll see in the left-hand column in that large spreadsheet all the projects by member government, the original estimate, and then a revised estimate for the ones that they do have revised estimates for. Did that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Partially. And then I guess what I wanted to know is, I think it was the 1 point what million, Kathleen, from one other source that you were short.
We got $5.1 million from PPRTA
Right,
1
right.
and $1 million in increased federal grants.
Okay, but there
And
was.
then
there was-
1.5 from Pikes Peak.
There was, yeah.
And then the 1.5, that's the transfer that we're removing from the Pikes Peak reconstruction job to Woodman.
Okay, that's
But
what I want to
we-
know is, are we allowed to do that and then have you refund that? That's all I want to know.
We have transferred money before as we try to make sure that our budgets are straight and we have enough to sign a contract. Sometimes we think a budget is bigger than it needs to be and we'll transfer money out. Other times it's simply a holding pattern. We'll transfer money out and then transfer it back from another source once we have a better clue of where it can come from.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're legally allowed to do that, and if we've done it in the past, and I just don't want to set a new precedent that,
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a legal argument, but I'll let Jennifer talk to that. But I think as on the backside of that big spreadsheet that we have, we also track the line item transfers
Right.
to and from projects. So the board can see every month or every time we publish that in the budget or revised budget is probably more appropriate, where the money came from and went back to.
okay,
So board discretion is allowable to do that.
okay. And as long as we've done it in the past and
Yeah.
it's been allowed, then I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So.
I saw a couple other hands up here, and then we'll go to the audience. Trustee Turner Smith, did you? Okay. Did I see your hand down there? Apparently not. Jim? Sorry, Bill, I thought you.
Jim Godfrey, as an answer to your question from the CAC perspective, most of the time we have allowed a member to, as they clean up projects and they close them out,
Right.
is to move those into other projects and stay within their budget versus rolling large amounts or a bunch of small amounts into that general pot for redistribution. So as a policy and precedence, we've allowed them to keep the money and just rearrange it when we know they've got underfundings and other projects within their budget.
Any other discussion? Call the roll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Which brings us to Colorado Springs again. Is there anything else there is?
The first contract that we're looking at today is a contract for $27,000 in PPRTA money. It is a matching to a federal grant for Safe Routes to School. This is a Safe Routes to School grant that actually is older than I have been city traffic engineer at the city. It's been around for a while. We finally got the IGA and contract written on this one from CDOT, and so we'll be proceeding to build sidewalks and pedestrian bump outs on Broadway near the Midland Elementary School on the west side of town.
Move approval?
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next contract is for $150,000 to be added to our on-call landscape maintenance. In the original PPRTA 1, when it went to the voters, the city promised that we would maintain what we built, both maintaining as far as roadway improvements, but also maintaining things like landscaping if we put landscaping in. We've tried to be very judicious about putting in landscaping and not landscape everything because it's a tough place to get landscaping to grow. But we do have landscaping on some of our larger projects, and this $150,000 is to provide for the on-call maintenance contract for doing things such as mowing Milton Proby or replacing dead plants.
Questions?
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, I have to stop and think what this one is. This is a $20 million, oh, I remember what this is now. This is the.
That's all right. We're blaming Mike. You said to thank you.
Yeah, Mike, where are you? This is the construction contract with Wildcat Construction Company for $31,349,374 for the widening of Woodman, that we just added $1.5 million into this project in order to fully fund this. This will be for both the widening of Woodman and the CFI intersection at Union and Woodman.
Move approval.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a point of curiosity, start time and length of project?
Yeah.
I believe we're looking at about 18 months. Does that sound right, Corey? Did you hear, have you heard? I think it's about 18 months, and construction should start soon.
When does construction start? I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, what was that, Councilman Norris?
Construction, when does it start?
It should start within the next month or so now that we've got a contractor in.
Their memo shows November 17, so I'll have to be about that.
Finish.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 4.
Item number 4 is for the purchase of a pedestrian bridge to go over Monument Creek in the area of the confluence of Fountain Creek. This is being purchased out of city intersection funds. You might wonder what an intersection fund is doing on a pedestrian bridge, but the pedestrian bridge is part of our local match to CDOT for the construction of the Cimarron interchange. And so we are using intersection improvement funds as one of the ways that we are funding the local share of the Cimarron interchange.
Discussion?
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item number 5 was pulled. That was the paint truck. That'll come back at a later time, I assume.
Well, I can.
Or you're doing the
He wants
paint?
to talk
All
about
right.
He's itching.
Corey, welcome.
Wants to talk about the paint truck.
Thank you. Corey Farkas, City of Colorado Springs, Public Works. So think of this as a pre-qualification, I guess. Before we started going out and getting pricing.
We'll have to check your credit.
Exactly. Hey, I'm good for it. They trusted me with $50 million a year in 2C, so I think we can do it. So before obviously we're very busy, and before we put some folks legwork trying to find all the numbers out, we wanted to kind of get a feel for how everybody was feeling about it. And so we put together some talking points here. The current truck we have is a city vehicle. We've been using it for the last 12 years. It's 2004. We've been using it on all of our PPRTA projects for the last 10 years to do all of our paint striping, and it's just getting old. It's in and out of the shop quite a bit. We actually just got it out of the shop. We had it out for a day, and it went back down. So we're falling behind on the painting that we need to do on our roadways at this point. And again, we put down some of the talking points here, but the one that really sticks out is the 6th bullet here. And so for a production goal of 4-inch lines and to get 1,300 lane miles done, which would be our goal for the city here, we have a contractor that we do have a contract with. They do it for about 52 cents a square foot. 1,300 lane miles comes out to roughly about 2.3 million square feet of paint to put down. We get it done for about $1.2 million. So when you're looking at what our in-house capability is, we get it done for about 13 cents a square foot compared to the contractor, so just under $300,000. So feasibly, and the question came out, how much do these cost? They're not cheap. This is about a $500,000 truck that we're talking about, piece of equipment. It's very specialized. There's about 3 contractors that we know, suppliers that we know, that we would get pricing from once we went down that street. But looking at what we could do, the painting for plus the cost of the truck, we're still looking at a $300,000 to $400,000 savings to get 1,300 lane miles done. So when we took a look at that, I mean, it obviously made sense to us, but we wanted to bring it before the CAC and the board to make sure that everybody was comfortable with that direction, and then we would proceed from there to get our pricing from these 3 different vendors that are out there. You just can't run down to the corner and pick one of these things up. So before we started looking for that. The other point that I think I need to make also is on the Front Range here, there's only 2 contractors that do this. There's one in Denver and one in Castle Rock. There's nobody local here in Colorado Springs. And so when we contract with our contractor up out of Castle Rock, we get put on the back burner quite a bit. So when We want them to come down and do some painting for us, and there's more painting to do in Denver. We get put off for a week or two until they have schedule to come down here and get us done. Number one. Number two, what we're seeing, and I think Jennifer and Kathleen and everybody would be able to attest to this, construction costs with the growing economy are on the move. They're heading north, unfortunately. Things are getting more expensive. So it's a simple supply and demand issue. We're seeing our costs go up and up and up when we could feasibly purchase this vehicle and maintain a much flatter cost with our painting moving forward in the future years. So again, we've had the one that we've got for 12 years. We would expect this one to go for another 10 to 12 years before we would have to hopefully replace things. And who knows, with the new technology, ours is obviously a dinosaur in comparison. With the new trucks that are out there, we might be able to get more time out of it. Who knows? So again, just trying to get a feel for how everybody felt about that and kind of get that pre-qual.
I have a few questions, but
Sure.
Trustee Smith has been waiting patiently.
The paint that your contractors put down versus the paint that this new truck puts down, are we talking apple for apple, or there's some differences?
The paint's the same.
And it would hold up the same, okay? And I'm sure you've looked at the cost of putting an employee in there and the maintenance of the truck and.
Absolutely. We've got our average right now, our average annual operating costs for this truck is just under $27,000, and that includes labor, parts, fuel, oil, everything on average. We're averaging $26,000 a year. And again, this is an older truck that's in the shop a lot.
What do you figure for labor to put an operator in there?
That's all built into our square foot cost. So both of these, the 52 cents a square foot from the contractor and our in-house cost at 13 cents are fully loaded. So that would be equipment, material, and labor that would go into that cost.
With it breaking down all the time, it's higher.
Correct.
So I'm having a little trouble reconciling your two bullet points there where it costs you 13 cents a square foot, but the next bullet point, you're only going to save $400,000. That sounds like government accounting in some manner. So you're not counting for something in your 13 cents.
So 13 cents a square foot, you're looking at about $300,000, just under $300,000
Right.
to paint our lines. $1.2 million for the contractor to paint our lines.
Right, I get those two.
Okay, we have to add the purchase of the vehicle in there. So what it would cost us to buy the truck for $500,000 plus the $300,000 or so for the what we're going to do on the program would be able to save $400,000.
Okay, so you're factoring in the complete purchase
The
price of
complete
the
purchase
truck
price of the truck.
in 1 year.
In 1 year.
Because obviously the contractor has to factor in the purchase price of his equipment. Now, he will depreciate it over a longer period.
Sure.
But
So we're counting the
13 cents really doesn't cover all your costs. That's
No. We're saying that if we had a truck that was free and clear,
Okay.
we bought a paint truck outright, it
Right.
costs us 13 cents
Got it.
a square foot, fully loaded. That's the cost of the maintenance of the vehicle, fuel and everything,
Operators,
operator
paint.
labor, and the material.
Okay.
But when you add the cost of the truck, we're purchasing it outright.
So you get
in
your
there.
payback in 1 year,
Correct.
plus some.
Correct.
Trustee Smith?
Back when you bought your truck 12 years ago, did you not buy two trucks?
I've been here for 3 years, so I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
Along that vein, I thought RTA had bought a paint truck.
Okay, so
By
the
the time.
RTA did buy a paint truck in 2012, or in 2010, but it's an epoxy truck. Difference.
So we use two kinds of paint for different projects, an epoxy paint and the regular paint. Most of our stripes on the road are done in regular paint. Epoxy paint is used for special legends, crosswalks, things that wear off faster than the stripes on the road. You really couldn't afford to do all of the road stripes in epoxy paint because epoxy is expensive. But we do the things that wear quickly in epoxy. Yes.
Some types of paint represent safety hazards to motorcycles.
True. That's why we add crystal beads to all of our paint at a recommended amount to get that amount of grit that you need on the paint to hopefully give everyone the chance to stop. And we do follow federal recommendations on the amount of crystals we use.
So you still have both trucks?
We still have both trucks. It's the paint truck that is down all the time. The epoxy truck is working, and we're able to use that on our projects. It's not for long line projects, it's for small legend projects.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mayor Pro Tem Stevens.
I was just curious about the utilization of these two vehicles in terms of seasonal, and then also, is it rolling 90% of the working hours or 10%?
Good question.
So for the new truck, you're
Oh,
talking-
you have two trucks currently,
right, so we have a paint truck that's in the shop constantly, and then we have the epoxy truck.
right?
The epoxy truck is up and running. It does very well. And when our crews are out doing crosswalks, legends, things of that nature, that thing is working all the time. When we've got another crew that would be on the paint truck, that crew typically goes and takes the scrubber and burns off old markings, things of that nature, when the truck is down. So, but the epoxy truck is, we have no
Was the
problems with
question,
that.
how many hours a year does the truck?
Generally, yeah.
I don't have that information off the top of my head. I'd have to take a look into Cartograph, and maybe Kathleen has that on.
So the reason we're tag teaming this is that I graciously gave Corey the paint trucks and the crews that go with them last year. You've been enjoying them, haven't you, Corey?
They're great.
Okay, good. The general rule of thumb with both paint and epoxy is that the pavement has to be above 50 degrees before you can paint. We typically find that around the 1st of May is when we can start painting, and usually the 1st of October to mid-October is when we have to stop painting. That seems like they're down for a long time. It turns out that that's good. Paint trucks are very hard to do their annual maintenance on. You know how long it takes you to clean out the paint roller when you're done painting your house. It's sort of the same, only much bigger for a paint truck. So they go into maintenance for all of winter, and all paint is removed from their inside working parts, and everything's cleaned thoroughly so that they're ready to go next May 1st.
And then from May 1st to October 1st, utilization on it every day?
They
or-
pretty much go constantly.
Further questions, discussion? So I'm not sure this needs a motion and a vote.
I think the CAC simply made a motion, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, to move forward.
Based on the information presented to us, the CAC saw no reason for them to not proceed collecting the information they would need to come back to us with a formal request.
If you're looking for something from the board, I'll just give you a thumbs up. So,
Anybody have a problem with them bringing this forward? Trustee Smith?
It would be good to have the service records on that truck and see how many weekdays it was in the shop, or things other than oil changes, how many hours it was not on the job.
Perhaps Corey could get with you offline and get those to you.
Sure.
Try to answer those questions.
You know, that the board as a whole should have.
that's fine.
Sure.
Okay, I'll call.
We're used to dealing with old trucks at the county, so we have a pretty good idea of what in the shop needs.
I'll call Ryan, and he can get with Serco and
Okay.
get all the records.
All right.
Maybe you can sell the old truck to the county.
Right?
Sell it to the county.
So, okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks.
So it's before-
Brings us to item number 8,
What a deal.
other reports.
Oh, yeah,
So-
52,000.
City of Colorado Springs request to revise board policy number 12.
Do we not need,
Do the El Paso.
Oh,
think we
I already
skipped
crossed
something.
that off.
Come on up,
okay.
Okay. 7C, El Paso County.
All right.
Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. John Clack, El Paso County Public Services, Department of Public Works. We have 3 maintenance items for your consideration today. The first one is for an aggregate contract. This would be for a purchase order in the amount of $280,000. Of this, $70,000 would be for gravel, and $210,000 would be for chips. The gravel would be for graveling our roads, and the chips would be for our chip seal program. And this would be to various vendors, and that would depend on the location and the type of material that's available. This is a renewal from our 2015 invitation for bid. The second item is for asphalt. This would be for patching for our highway crews. This would be a purchase order in the amount of $300,000, and this would be to Schmidt Construction Company. We went out with a cooperative bid with the City of Colorado Springs, and this is the final renewal on that contract. The last item is for emulsified asphalt. This, again, is for our chip seal program, and this would be a purchase order in the amount of $725,000, and this would be to Suncor, and that is a CDOT contract that we would be using. Can I answer any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Yes, Councilmember.
Question, because we were watching graphs go in the wrong direction. Asphalt. What is the difference in the price of asphalt this year versus previous years?
For the asphalt that we're using for our patching, that actually stayed the same, I believe. Yes,
Okay.
wait, I'm sorry.
Oh.
2015 was $48 a ton. 2016 is $44 a ton, so it actually went down $4 a ton. I was looking at the TAC code, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Now we're on to item number 8, City of Colorado Springs request to revise policy number 12.
Kathleen Krager for the city. PPRTA has a policy of allowing a 25% or a 25,000 increase for a task for a contractor. And what's the total amount? I forgot. Is it a total 100,000?
For capital, it's
Yeah.
lesser, 15% or 100,000.
Yes. So that's fine for our typical size projects, but when we have a really large project like Woodman, that would mean that we would have to come running to the board for very minor change orders, and that could mean a 1-month delay every time we have a change order, and I'm not sure we would get Woodman done in that instance. So as we have done with previous projects that are of a size, we ask for a change in the policy for this project. We're asking to allow us to go to 5% or $1.5 million in total change orders.
Without approval.
Yes, Councilmember.
Yeah, since this has been reviewed by the CAC and has their recommendation, that I would move approval.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mike, thanks to you.
Yes. 8B, Colorado Springs Transit Services Monthly Update. Welcome, Craig.
Good afternoon. Craig Blewett, City of Colorado Springs Transit Services. And we have our monthly report in your agenda packet. Just a couple highlights with regard to our local fixed route bus service. We went up about 3.4% for the month compared to a year ago. And our ADA service was up about 2% ridership compared to a year ago. And van pools are actually down by fairly hefty 13.2%. We did have a couple van pools drop out, and we're looking to get a couple more van pools going. In terms of projects, our spring service change did go into effect May 1st. Really, the bulk of it went into effect on May 2nd, which was a Monday. We are a fairly big deal because there were a lot of changes with this service change. And so as I've reported before, we did have a very robust public outreach and input process ahead of the changes. And we also had staff members out in the field, out in the service for the first few days of the service changes as well, just to give assistance to our riders, and that went pretty well. The downtown station relocation study is well underway, and we're on target to complete that. We're trying to complete it by August, but it could go as late as September. But we are making good progress on that study as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Bennett.
Yeah, I've noticed, Craig, that the Manitou shuttle is about twice the size of what it was last year. How is that working with the new buses?
I have not asked that question specifically, but I haven't heard any problems. So I think it's working well. I believe we're still using the 29-foot bus. We bought 14 new buses last fall and this spring. 5 of those were shorter buses, 6 feet shorter than our other short buses. But you're right; those buses used to be the old Ute Pass Express buses. But we did put the shorter buses on that system. The advantage of that is the new buses have 2 doors rather than 1, and the Ute Pass buses had a very narrow aisle. They had wider seats because it was for a longer trip. And so as a result, it took longer to stop to get people off and get people on because they all had to go out the same door and so forth. So the advantage with the 2 doors is the boarding process is a lot quicker and we can keep the bus moving.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Councilmember Bagley.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. One, at the auditorium meeting on the downsizing or dieting of the streets down around CC, there was some complaints about the buses on Nevada.
Right.
And I was surprised, they were surprised that there were buses on Nevada, but all the city town hall meetings that y'all held, I'm surprised anybody missed that there were going to be buses. But there were some complaints about buses on Nevada. And what would be the impact of the necking down of the Nevada, Cascade, and Wasatch for the buses?
Well, currently, before our service change, we had a 30-minute service on Cascade and 60-minute service on Wasatch. And with the service change, we're having 15-minute service on Nevada, finding again that our 15-minute frequency on the Platte-Boulder corridor, increased our ridership by 26% in the first few months. So it was very successful, and that was our long-range plan also said, let's develop high-frequency corridors. We're fine with Nevada as it is now. But if we were to go down to 1 lane, we would be concerned about delays to trains, especially we'd either be boarding, passengers in the 1 lane and stopping traffic while boarding passengers, or we'd have to go out, and then we'd have a double time getting back in. So my request to traffic engineering was that if we do go down to 1 lane, the idea was we were just going to do it with paint, so we'd still have the room, and then allow the buses to use that former right lane. So maybe make it exclusive bus and right turns, local access type of a lane. So that's our recommendation. I know it's being considered as part of the process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Item C, City of Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition report. Let me find my...
That would be you again.
You do. You do.
You wanted to play Mike.
Jeez, I didn't realize Mike had so much on his plate.
Looks like this.
It does, and I can barely read that. But,
You're not alone.
yes, it is included in your report. Feel free to ask me questions.
When Mike gets back.
And you'll take it back and research.
Preferably.
It was a time extension, no dollar value.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do listen during the meeting once in a while.
Citizens Advisory Committee Chair comes through once again. Thank you. D would be same report for El Paso County.
There you go. They're kidding.
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County. As I promised last month, we have a bunch more property acquisition reports from Mark Shuffle South. And we anticipate in the future to have two remaining to bring to you. And then we still do have to complete the final disposition of those 3 possession and use agreements that we have for that one property down south, the Lorson Ranch. So.
Questions?
Looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad we're progressing there since we have equipment out there.
Yeah.
Item number 9, State of Colorado legislating regarding RTAs. May be the last report since today is our last day, but surprises could yet
24
happen.
hours in a day.
I hope we don't have any surprises in the last few hours. Good afternoon, Rachel Beck, Policy and Communication Manager. The bill that the board had voted to oppose vigorously, I'm pleased to report, was killed in a dramatic fashion in its second committee. It was an interesting procedural journey that the bill went through. You may recall it was first assigned to the Local Government Committee, which voted to send the bill to the floor. Then the bill was laid over a number of times and sent to a second committee, which is very unusual. So it was heard in the Judiciary Committee. Our litigator Peter Forbes and Commissioner Sally Clark testified on behalf of the region and the PPRTA, and Fountain City Manager testified in favor of the bill. The testimony was interrupted 5:30 or so that the committee could go back to the House floor to conduct some more business, reconvened at 10 after 10 or something like that evening, at which point the committee did vote to postpone the bill indefinitely. 2 of our local representatives on the committee voted in our favor, Pete Lee and Terry Carver, so make sure to thank them next time that you see them. They both asked very good questions as well. And 3 of the votes in favor of the bill were actually procedural in nature, at least in part. There were committee members that felt that it was poor treatment, that the bill had been sent back to a second committee, and so it was kind of a vote in protest, and they wanted the bill to go ahead and go to the floor so that it could be heard and discussed by the entire House. So it's possible we'll see a version of this next year, but for this session at least, the issue is resolved. It's really been a team effort. A lot of city and county staff, people on this board, our attorneys, really pulled together to coordinate efforts and messages and make sure that the committees heard our side on this bill, and also that the county has a fantastic lobbyist that did a great job helping us. So compliments to all of your staff.
Thank you. Questions? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Rachel, I know every time we had a question, email went over to you. We got answers back, so thank you.
Oh, that's
We
good. Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
You know, I'm sorry, there was one other bill I was going to mention to the committee, and I almost forgot because I was so excited about 1303. But that is Senate Bill 210, which was introduced and died in the last 2 weeks. It moved through very quickly, and it was a proposal to send a proposal to the voters in November of either this year or the next 2 or 3 years. And it proposed a new project list as well as some statewide projects that would be paid for with bonds, bonding against federal funds that would come to CDOT. The projects that were specified for the Pikes Peak region were almost entirely not from our PPACG board's priority list. There was one off the priority list, but the other 3 were park and ride expansions. And so in the process of talking to our legislators about this bill, the feedback that we heard is that we need to do a better job of communicating our needs and our priorities so that when these sorts of lists are put together, the people who are making them know what we want. And if we don't get our projects into this bill, into these kinds of proposals, the effect on RTAs like ours may be that there's more pressure on RTAs to deliver if those CDOT funds are tied up for other projects not in our region. So keep that in mind as you're speaking with legislators and others who have influence on these lists and these sorts of proposals.
Thank you. Yes, trustee.
Did I see the RTA property tax extension was killed?
Yes.
Interesting. So where does that leave?
That was a
Forks?
month or two ago, actually.
Okay.
They still have the option to bring that back next year
Okay.
and try
Because
again.
it doesn't expire till 18? Is that?
19.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Takes us to item number 12, member announcements. Any member announcements? Yes, sir.
Not really an announcement, but a question. Excuse me. In a MAC meeting this morning, there were several discussions about infrastructure and the impact on the various bases around, one of which was the South Mark Shuffle, impacting the Mark Shuffle Gate to Peterson. And the question is, could we get a financial report on Mark Shuffle, where the money comes from, how much is it, and the purpose that MAC would be using it would be demonstrating that we in Colorado Springs are supporting our military bases, looking at Mark Shuffle as being a improvement on the access and egress from the base, providing more ease of deployments and that kind of thing. So supporting the base with South Mark Shuffle. And if I could just, I don't know who would be the right person to talk to about getting just a summary financial report on Mark Shuffle project.
Go ahead, Jen.
Jennifer, would you like to answer that?
If you tell me what you need and in the format that you want it, we'd be happy to provide it.
Okay,
So I can give you my contact
yeah.
information after the meeting.
okay, super. Thank you.
Thanks.
I
Kathleen.
was going to suggest, Counselor, that you might want the same from CDOT for the money they're spending on powers at the
Good.
airport interchange, and
Yes.
they could use the same
Good point.
form of documentation.
And who would I get that from?
If you tell me what it is you want, I will get it from CDOT,
Okay,
okay?
I can do that. Thank you.
Marvelous. Any other announcements?
Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County again. Just hopefully you've received the invite to the ribbon cutting for the Baptist West project. I believe that was sent out to everybody on both the board and the CAC, so we'd be happy if you were able to be there.
Will there be donuts?
There will be refreshments provided by some consultants, not paid for by PPRTA, but as some of our consultants that have worked on the project.
Time and date?
It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 18th.
And Jennifer, I sent this in a message, but Colorado Springs, our stormwater project has a kickoff at the same time.
Ah.
Different locations, so I won't be able to attend, but hopefully some counselors might be.
I'll be there.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate all the support, even if you're not there. We know that you're there, and
In spirit.
yes, sir.
Other announcements? Seeing none, we are adjourned. So there was a MAC meeting this morning.
It was the chair of the board.